Good, good afternoon, and welcome to our 2025 Population Health and Equity Forgiveness Conference Series. Our theme for 2025 is Faith, Family, Forgiveness, and Fortitude. Today, we'll start a series of celebratory activities to celebrate Forgiveness Day and World Day of Peace on the 21st. My name is Dr. Magon Saunders, and I serve as a founder and executive director and a board member at the Forgive for Health Ministries, Inc. in Sound Mountain, Georgia. I'm a mom and grandmother, and happy to be here with our special guest today. I'd like to start with a word of prayer. Holy God, we thank you for this opportunity to bring the word to your people. You said, oh God, that your people perish because of lack of knowledge. And so we are providing them with lots of knowledge, help the words be planted on fertile soil, help them to be receptive anywhere they're hearing us today, whether it's YouTube or Facebook. And thank you, Father God, that you are going to be doing a new work in each of us. We thank you for our guest speaker, Dr. Leon, God. Touch his mouth and make everything he do and say, glorify your holy name. We ask this in Christ our Lord. Amen. We are about to record this session, so please share your name and location, whether you're on Facebook or here in the Zoom room. Mute your lines until we come to the Q&A section. Please place your questions or comments in the chat, and the meeting is being recorded, or should be, because I need to click that record button at this point and make sure we're recording it. If you have any questions, drop it in the chat, and please stay off video if you're driving or moving around. Please contact Dr. Meg at forgiveforhealth@gmail.com if you run into any technical glitches or have follow-up questions. Let's keep moving. Here are our conference objectives for 2025. Our goal this year is to define forgiveness, its benefits, and how it can help to promote healing, peace, fortitude, and well-being in our families and communities. We want to share population health strategies for enhancing the health and well-being of all Americans during this challenging time. And we hope to describe strategies for addressing poor or suboptimal care in the U.S. healthcare system and provide tips for patients and other advocates for improving care. Last but not least, we want to offer promising practices for improving mental health, family relationships, chronic disease management, estate planning, nutrition, and physical activity. So we hope by the time we end next week, Saturday, we would have achieved all of these objectives. Before we jump into the conversation about physical activity and how it expands your lifestyle and lifespan, I'd like to give you a brief overview of our ministry. The first thing to know about Forgive for Health Ministry is that we work with a definition of forgiveness, which is on the screen in front of you. It's an old definition, but still very applicable. It describes several types of forgiveness, both decisional forgiveness and emotional forgiveness. And I'll read it for you at the moment. It says, forgiveness is the act of deliberately giving up resentment towards an offender while fostering the undeserved quality of beneficence or goodwill and compassion towards that offender. This is the definition we use. We understand that definitions vary across the country and in the world, but this is what we use as we work with our clients in this ministry. A quick overview of our ministry. We are a faith-based Christian organization with a 501c3 designation. I'm coming right now to you live out of Stone Mountain, Georgia, but we have a global footprint. We are led by a diverse board of directors and our pastoral lead. And this ministry started by the stirrings of the Holy Spirit as an offshoot from a doctoral study I did on forgiveness and its impact on the health of African American divorcees. Currently, we work in a religious, Christian, and clinical and community setting, and we thread forgiveness assessment, facilitation, and training into the fabric of all we do. For instance, if you come to see me in clinical nutrition programs, you will have to do a forgiveness assessment. We know that that's critical for our patients. And we offer virtual and online programs, so please visit our website at forgiveforhealth.org for more information. A little bit more about the ministry. Here's our value statement. We work to heal all relationships for good. Our vision is for people to live free of unforgiveness and all its consequences. And the mission statement is helping people grow and thrive with a forgiving heart. It's on our back of our Zoom background as we speak. A little bit about our programming and initiatives. We have an RT and forgiveness programs on Saturday and Friday night, at 7:30 for adults. People can join from anywhere because it's virtual. We have an RT and forgiveness juniors program for kids under 14 years of age every Saturday morning at 10. And we have this annual conference every third Saturday of September. And then we have a World Day of Peace celebration on Day of Peace on September 21st. We offer a Restoring Your Heart support group for those who have been divorced or have gone through broken relationship. And we have a Forgiveness Live magazine program, which airs every second Saturday at 1 p.m., which is what we're currently on today. We have an RT and forgiveness facilitators training to help people implement this program we have in different parts of the country. And we offer one-on-one and group forgiveness coaching to help people be free of the unforgiveness that they're carrying. And last but not least, we have diabetes and chronic disease management services to help people manage their diabetes, hypertension, obesity, etc. So we'll love to talk more about anything we do if you have questions. So physical activity or physical inactivity, which is what most Americans are actually doing now, is not being active, is one of the leading actual cause of death in this country. And we looked across the country and found an expert that I think you're going to be so astonished to hear the amazing things he'll share with us today, who's going to talk today about physical activity and how it can expand your lifespan and build your fortitude. And so without further ado, I'd like you to help me welcome virtually Dr. Leon Contreras. He's a clinical exercise physiologist, a physiology doctor. He's also a dietitian trainee at Neogenus LLC in Cleveland, Ohio. Leon, it is my distinct pleasure to welcome you to this session today. I know you have some amazing slides. They blew me away when I saw them first. So why don't you share the slide, and I'm going to go silent and have you do this and leave everything to you. So over to you, Dr. Leon. Thank you for coming to us all the way from Cleveland, Ohio.
Thank you so much for the invitation, and it's an honor for me to present this information to you and everybody who wants this information. I'm going to give a little bit of my background. It's a little bit long, but I'm not going to go through all that. But I have multiple degrees that I have tried to obtain with the only hope that I can help humanity to live better. I am a dietetic candidate who specializes in diabetes. My doctorate is about food physiology. My first master's is about cardiac problems. I hold multiple certifications and licenses like medical exercise specialist, exercise physiologist, exercise therapist. And in my free time, I do martial arts and gymnastics. But let's talk about what we all came here to talk about. I want to begin saying that movement is a medicine, and sitting is becoming the new smoking. These are powerful words that I want you to remember throughout the presentation. And for our objectives, I want to use this picture that my professor gave me a long time ago, and I carry with myself everywhere I go. This is the correlation between physical inactivity and cardiometabolic health. This is how your body slowly deteriorates and becomes a problem for yourself without you even noticing. Without further ado, we're going to begin talking about blood pressure first. We have to define what blood pressure is in order to understand what things happen. Blood pressure is defined as the pressure that the blood has in the artery walls every time they pass. We do know that high blood pressure, also known as hypertension, is determined by 130 in the systolic number and above 80 in the diastolic number. The way we measure blood pressure is pretty easy. We use these two numbers, systolic pressure and diastolic pressure. The systolic referring to the pressure that the blood makes in the arteries when the heart is contracting, And the diastolic pressure is the pressure that the blood gives to the arteries when the heart is relaxed. We have some categories that comes from the American Heart Association. We want to see people with the systolic below 120 and the diastolic below 80. Everything above that will be elevated. And then when you get to here is when you get to hypertension stage 1. How does that happen? When you sit down for 1 hour, you have this thing called fibrinogen, which is a protein, which job is to create like I would say like a ball of blood, red blood cells, and platelets with the only purpose to stop somebody from bleeding. The mechanism is a little bit complicated to explain, but basically what happens is when there is a damaged blood vessel and you're bleeding, fibrinogen is activated, then platelets are activated, and then fibrin is activated, and they all come together to stop you from bleeding, and it creates a clot. So why is that related to be sitting down? Well, we do know that our body is amazing distributing blood because blood carries oxygen and nutrients. So when you see the heart in the middle, the heart has to pump blood above and below. And when it does that, it's expecting the same blood to come back via the veins. But what happened? When you sit down for 1 hour, the heart becomes scared because the blood that is sending down is not coming back as fast as the blood that is coming from above. This is because of gravity. When you sit down from your waist and down, the blood that your heart was pumping down is taking too long to come back to your heart. And by doing that, the heart will begin to think that you are bleeding. So that's why it's activating fibrinogen. And this is what happens in your blood vessels. That's why you get hypertension, which is sitting down. But some people will say they don't make no sense. Like the body's resting, you will always create this problem. Well, it is true. Sedentary behavior is associated with cardiac problems. As a matter of fact, we have multiple research studies that shows all the time, over and over, that sitting down for 1 hour elevates at least by 70% the activity of fibrinogen in your body. So you literally get hypertension by sitting down. How many people do you know that sit down every day for at least 8 hours? Just think about it. They sit down to go to their job because they're in their car. They sit down when they get to the office. They sit down when they're working. They sit down when they're at lunch. They sit down when they come back home. And then they get tired at home. And guess what? They also sit down. So, what we can see through the research is that sitting down could be a problem because it will induce hypertension. But not only that, it can only spike up your cholesterol. This is a condition called dyslipidemia. This comes from disorder, lip from lipids, which is fat, and emia in the blood. So this is a uncontrolled situation of cholesterol in your arteries. And the responsible to fix this is a protein called lipoprotein lipase. This is an enzyme whose job is to take out the cholesterol in your blood. So what happens is every time your cholesterol go too high, and to be specific, the LDL cholesterol, lipoprotein lipase go through your bloodstream and takes out that cholesterol and put it down. However, we do know through multiple research that if you spend 1 hour sitting down, at least 90% of the lipoprotein lipase is desactivated. If you don't have this important enzyme activated in your body, your cholesterol will go up. So this is just the beginning of what is going to happen. We do know that if you spend 1 hour, you get hypertension and dyslipidemia. But then what happens? How can we get more diseases from this? Easy. We need to explain a little bit about how carbohydrate metabolism works. Carbohydrates, which at the end of the day is glucose, sugar, has something called homeostatic state, which is the balanced state of your body. When you eat something, in this case a cupcake, your blood glucose level rises, meaning that your sugar levels will go up. Your pancreas will detect this, will activate beta cells, These beta cells are going to release insulin. We're all familiar with insulin. Insulin will reduce the blood sugar. And some of that sugar will go to your livers, some of the other sugars will go to your body cells, specifically your muscle cells. And then your blood glucose levels will decline and you will reach the homeostatic state, which is about 90 milligrams or 100 milliliters. Now, when the opposite happens, when you don't eat for a long period of time, your blood glucose levels fall. Then your pancreas is activated. Pancreas will activate alpha cells, which is released, we're going to release glucagon, which is the opposite of insulin. If insulin reduces blood sugar, glucagon will raise blood sugar. This will go to the liver to break down some glycogen and also to the muscles. And then you're going to release blood sugar. Your blood glucose levels will go up and you will reach homeostasis. However, you remember that you have hypertension. The pancreas have blood vessels like arteries, and these blood vessels can also be affected by the hypertension that you are having and also by the cholesterol problems that you're having. If that occurs, your pancreas get damaged. If your pancreas get damaged, then you get hyperglycemia, which is a lot of sugar in your blood. Your pancreas will have to work extra harder to reduce the amount of sugar you have in your blood. In order to do this, it's going to release more insulin than necessary. That will give you hyperinsulinemia, so meaning that you have too much insulin in your blood. And then eventually you will become insulin resistant. And once you become insulin resistant, you have more troubles coming. Because insulin resistant will give you exhaustion of insulin production. Exhaustion of insulin production will give you permanent damage to the pancreas, also known as diabetes mellitus type 2. And that will also make you more insulin resistant. So it's a vicious cycle. So what we have learned so far, we know that if you sit down for 1 hour, you get hypertension, dyslipidemia. This will cause hyperglycemia, hyperinsulinemia. But then from that, now we have more troubles from the cardiac side. If you cannot control your glucose levels right, and you have high cholesterol levels, you're gonna get into a condition called arteriosclerosis. Arterial means arteries. Sclero means something is being blocked. Osis is condition. So it's a condition in which you create an arteriosclerotic plaque because of the amount of cholesterol you have. So in a normal artery, you have good blood flow. But in an obstructed artery, you have something that is preventing you from letting that blood to go from one side to the other. If you are having this atherosclerosis plaque, when you reduce the size of the opening, we call this stenosis. And when you completely close it and the other side is not getting the oxygen it's needing, we call this ischemic attack, which can lead to a heart attack. So depending where you have the arteriosclerosis plaque, you will make a new disease. If you have these plaques of arteriosclerosis plaque in your coronary artery, you will get something called coronary artery disease, which is a really, really dangerous disease. It can lead to a heart attack in minutes. And the only problem with this disease is it's asymptomatic. Just like how you don't feel having hypertension, you also won't feel that you have coronary artery disease until it's too late. We have different ways in which we can try to save your life. One of them is coronary artery bypass graft, which is when you open the chest cavity and you try to take one artery that is blocked and disconnect it and grab it from another artery that could make that job happen. It's a really dangerous procedure. Only cardiologists, experienced cardiologists can do it. And most people don't survive. But if you do, you're more prone to cardiac attacks because your heart now is really, really weak. Another way that we can do this is something called angioplasty. Angio means artery, plasty means surgery. So what we do here is that we put a deflated balloon, and this balloon is inflated, and then we let a stent in the artery that is going to open the cavity. And by doing that, we kind of like try to get back the blood flow that we need to avoid a heart attack. This is only a temporary solution. And at the end of the day, people can always go back and get more cholesterol. If you happen to have it in your peripheral area, meaning arms and legs, you can get something called peripheral artery disease, which I know from my patients that is one of the most painful cardiac diseases because it will help, it will hurt in your lower area and it will prevent you from walking normally. Some other things can happen if your plaque, cholesterol plaque, is built up in your brain. You can get in a stroke. And this is because of the blood clot that is gonna block the artery plus the cholesterol plaque built up. And it's insane to believe this, but it is true. Most of the patients who comes to our clinic always have some history of sedentary behavior. If you happen to accumulate your cholesterol in your liver, you can get something called non-alcoholic cirrhosis, which is an excess fat on your liver that is not related to alcoholism. It's also known as fatty liver. If you happen to damage one of the arteries that goes to your kidneys, you can get something called chronic kidney disease, and they have different stages. It goes up to stage 5. But when patients reach stage 4, they can already be in dialysis forever or until somebody donates their kidneys. We also know that obesity is related to at least 13 types of cancers. Some of them that are really famous are breast cancer in postmenopausal women, ovarian endometrium cancer, kidney cancer, pancreas cancer, stomach cancer, esophagus cancer, and thyroid gland cancer. So as we know, if you sit down for 1 hour, you can get hypertension and dyslipidemia. This can induce hyperglycemia and hyperinsulinemia. This can also induce arteriosclerosis, which can give you strokes, peripheral vascular diseases, heart failures, myocardial infections, etc. But we can also get something called platelet aggregation. Platelet aggregation, if you remember when I was telling you what fibrinogen does, we could create clot formation unnecessarily, which can then lead you to a disease called deep vein thrombosis, which is also a painful disease that is supposed to happen in your old ages, like 60, 70, 80. But we are now seeing that this can happen at any age in sedentary people. I have some patients that are only 14 years old and they already have deep vein thrombosis. And then from all of this problem, we're gonna then induce obesity because when a person is sick, they tend not to move that much. And just for the sake of it, we can define obesity as an excess energy accumulated in the body. We have different ways in which we can measure it, but the most convenient sometimes is body mass index. People need to be 18.5 to 24.9 in order to be considered normal weight. Everything above will be considered either overweight or obesity. And again, this obesity will lead to physical inactivity, which then is going to give you more hypertension, more dyslipidemia, and more problems. So this is why I like this slide because it tells you everything you need to know from a physiological standpoint. Nobody gets sick for the sake of getting sick. There's always a cause. There's always a reason. Nobody will get cancer or become obese just because things happen. And this is only for the physical standpoint. If we begin to talk about diet and nutrition, things get even worse. If we begin to talk about stress in the mental realm, that also can get worse. How can we fix this? How can we build fortitude? How can we try to avoid these things? But we need to understand that physical activity will equal longer life and greater fortitude. In order to fix this, we need to remember that any movement beats none. I don't care if you're doing 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes of exercise. Anything can give you benefits. And if you raise the dose, meaning that if you raise the intensity to a certain point that is safe for you can get even more benefits. We also know that cardiorespiratory fitness and muscular strength could predict survivability. We do know that after 25 years old, every year, you're going to be losing 1% of your muscle mass. And what determines how young your body is and how good you can survive is how much muscles do you have and how well your heart is working. If your heart is not working and you don't have enough muscle, whether you got a disease or an accident, your survivability will go down regardless of. We also know that fortitude can expand stamina, strength, balance, metabolic, and mental resilience. How much is enough? So I summarize some of the guidelines that come from the American College of Sport Medicine. From the aerobic standpoint, they recommend 150 to 300 minutes per week in the moderate or vigorous intensity. If you do vigorous intensity, then we're gonna do 75 to 150 minutes. How much does that look like? That could be 30 minutes, 5 days a week. That'll be 150 minutes. Or it could be 1 hour, 3 days a week. And this is just the minimum to be considered healthy from the aerobic standpoint. For the strength, they recommend at least 2 days a week working the all major muscle groups. What are those muscles? We're talking about quadriceps, glutes, we're talking about biceps, chest, back. If you work out at least 2 days per week, you're gonna be good from the metabolic standpoint of the muscles. Older adults, we also recommend to add balance and multi-component training most days. And this is because as we age, we lose balance. And if you lose balance, you can be more prone to accidents. You can break a hip, you can break your shoulder, you can break your knees. So it's good to also train your mind to teach your muscles how to move and also to teach your muscles to obey your mind so you can get more coordination and balance. Now, can we believe this? Let's take a look to research. Research have shown that at least 75 minutes per week of brisk walking will add up to 1.8 years of your life. We also know that if you bump it up to higher than 150 minutes or more per week, you can add 3 to 4.5 years of your life expended. That's a lot. That's a lot. Equally important, if you don't do it, you can assume that you're resting years of your life. So we want to live longer life, but we also want to live healthy life that you can enjoy with your family and friends. Research also indicates that one MET, which is metabolic equivalent, higher than your cardiovascular resistance can lower the mortality rates 12 to 13%. What does that mean? That means that if you do something that is more extenuous than sitting down, it could be just walking, you already lowering your mortality risk, which is impressive. And one of my favorites, higher grip strength, which we can measure this, and 1 to 2 um, times per week of a strengthening exercise can reduce all causes of death and cardiovascular mortality. Those are significant research that have shown the benefits of exercise. I can provide the citation at the end in my references if anybody wants to take a look at this research article. So how do we break these habits of sitting down all the time? How do we undo this shit? How do we create a big impact? We need to begin with a small habits. We need to begin with small things. You're not going to become a bodybuilder in one night because people don't become obese in one night neither. It takes time. We can begin with simple things. We can break sitting every 20 to 30 minutes by doing 2 to 5 minutes of light walking after we eat. This can also help us to regulate glucose without the need of insulin. This is really good for people who have cardiovascular diseases, but also diabetic people. They can also benefit from this. After eating, we can also add 15 minutes, 3 times, um, of exercises to improve the 24 glycemia or the blood or the glucose that you have in your blood. This is really friendly for people who have diabetes mellitus type 2. It might not apply to type 1 diabetic people, but it can also benefit from it. Then we can also include VILPA. I didn't talk about this before, but VILPA basically is considered a technique that it was created for people who don't have enough time to do exercise. VILPA stands for Vigorous Intermittent Lifestyle Physical Activity. It's the idea that very short, hard bursts of everyday moments, Things like climbing the stair fast, walking briskly uphill, power mopping, carrying heavy groceries quickly, and hustling to catch a bus. If you do that 1 to 2 minutes, at least let's say 3 to 4 times per day, these are linked to lower risk for premature death compared to doing nothing. So those are significant things that we can do to change our life forever. Now I want to give a simple weekly template of things that you can do in order to change your life. You can do 30 minutes of brisk walk 5 times per day. I mean, one time every 5 days of a week. So you can do 30 minutes on Monday, 30 minutes on Tuesday, 30 minutes on Wednesday, 30 minutes on Thursday, 30 minutes on Friday. Or you can just choose 3 days and do 50 minutes, just brisk walk. For strength, you can do exercises with dumbbells. You don't have to be that big. It could be small. It could be 5, 10, 15 pounds. You can do pushing movement like bench press. You can do pulling movement like roll back. You can do legs movement like squats. You can do hinge movement like deadlift. And you can do core movements like planks. You do that 2 to 3 times, total body sessions. That won't take you more than 30 minutes. You'll be good. For balance and mobility exercise, you can do 10 to 15 minutes every day, or at least most days. These exercises include raising one leg and just sustain one leg, or just closing your eyes and having your legs a little bit up and shoulder width apart. Those things that challenge your proprioception of your brain to know where you are at all time. You can also do 1 to 3 minutes of Velpa every day. You can also walk 10 to 15 minutes every dinner, after every dinner. Remember, safety first, progress always. You always need to get medical clearance if you're symptomatic for any cardiac problem or if you're a high risk person. What I mean by this is if you have been diagnosed with arteriosclerosis, hypertension, diabetes, or any condition that will prevent you from exercise, talk to your doctor first so he can give you medical clearance. Also, you need to start low, go slow, and then you increase the volume meaning intensity and frequency, 10% every week. Meaning that if you are carrying a weight of 5 pounds, maybe next week you can increase 6 pounds, 7 pounds, maybe 10 pounds. Maybe next week you can increase to 15 pounds. Don't go too fast, listen to your body, and go through your own level. You also need to make sure to master the technique. Prioritize recovery and sleep. As I always tell to my patients, you don't become strong when you do exercise. You become strong after the exercise. Exercise is just the stimulus to tell your body to become better. Okay? So if you do an exercise and the next day you do something even harder than before, that is not a good way to do things. You need to always prioritize your sleep and your recovery. Also remember to drink enough protein or eat enough protein. Hydration is also important, and the footwear matters. If you are walking in a footwear that could damage your blood vessels in your legs, then we have a new problem. Track what matters. Every weekly minutes and the steps that you do, your RPE, which is the rate of perceived exertion, from 1 to 10, how hard was the exercise? You can track that. Your heart rate zones, how much your blood pressure was going up and your heart rate was going up when you were doing this exercise, and then do it. Go and take your blood pressure next week, and then take your blood pressure next week. As you going better and better, your blood pressure and heart rate should be going down. That means that your heart is getting better and better. You can also do a simple test like a 1 mile walk time. Go and walk for a mile, timing yourself. Let me know next month how fast you can do it compared to the first time. Maybe you can do a 5 times sit to stand and just time it. How fast can you sit and stand back and forth? Maybe you can do a grip strength. There's a machine for that. Also, take care of your mental status too. Make a journal and tell about your mood. How well are you sleeping? Maybe do some check-ins to see if you're exercising or not. Put something in the calendar so you can have more adherence. And lastly, the last thing I want to share with you is a 7-day Fortitude challenge. I want everybody who is in this presentation to take a screenshot or maybe write down all of these things, because this is something that I want to challenge everybody to do. It is not that hard, and I know most people can do it. You can add one 10 to 15 minutes post meal walk daily. That could make a big difference on your life. You can do two 20-minute strength circuit this week. You can insert two daily movement snacks, which is taking the stair or do a brisk walk. If you go to your job, why don't you park pretty far away so you can walk more? If you are taking a phone call, why don't you just go for a walk while you're talking in the phone? I also need you to measure your steps, your RPE, and do a simple test, a grip or sit to a stand. Just make sure you have something to track your progress, because that will give you a lot of fortitude. Remember, don't let the chair steal your years. Stand up, step forward, live longer, and live stronger. These are all of my references that I did. If you want to, I can send you this so you can read it on yourself. These are my contact information. This is my email, the email of my company, my personal phone number. And if you have any question, right now is the time.
Dr. Leon, amazing. Oh my God. That went too quickly. I was taking many picture shots. So I have lots of questions for you. First, I must commend you on an exciting and informative presentation. I learned so much, and I still work in this space. So it was really great to have you here today. We have lots of misconceptions around physical activity and fortitude and health. So I want to start with some of those, and I want you to help me with some myth busting for today. Let's talk a little bit about no pain, no gain. Why
Ooh,
is this mentality a harmful misconception? And how can we distinguish between normal muscle soreness and actual injury? Can you talk a little bit about that for me,
of
sir?
course, of course. The first thing we need to define is the difference between pain, real acute pain, and what we also call not being comfortable with a new stimulus, basically to feel sore. There is a big difference. Always depends on what kind of training technique we are applying, but it's the same thing. So if I'm doing weight training, there is a difference in having muscle fatigue for the accumulation of hydrogen ions, which then the lactate will take and create
Mhm.
lactic acid. So that is something that it feels like pain, but it's not pain. Because as soon as you stop doing the movement, the lactic acid will dissipate through the corticocycle in the liver, and you will feel better. Now, real pain would not go away with that easy. So people need to be careful, especially when they're weight training, that they don't overexert themselves, because they can heavily injure their muscles. If we're doing flexibility exercise, there is something called tension, because when you are doing flexibility, you put in the range of motion to the maximum capacity. And it's okay if you breathe in and breathe out, and you let your parasympathetic nervous system to kick in and relax your muscles, and you Golgi apparatus to do their job and everything. But it's not good to do it too fast or too much, because then that tension will become pain. And pain in flexibility is dangerous, because you can literally cut your tendons. And when it comes to aerobic exercise, we need to hear our body, we need to hear our heart, we need to understand the capacity of our lungs. People who have asthma like me, or people who smoke, or people who have other conditions, they might not have the same aerobic capacity of a normal person. So you always need to listen to your body. No pain, no gain is a fallacy, because you can gain a lot without
Yes.
pain. Exercise
Th-
shouldn't be painful.
All right. Thank you for that. Exercise should not be painful. Let's talk about another myth, spot reduction. Is it possible to target a specific area of the body, such as the belly or the stomach, by doing targeted exercise? And is that a good idea?
Lies. The body is determined by your genes. Know what you think, know what you want. So when you are, for example, in a caloric deficit, your body already have instructions in the DNA of what part should be burning fat or not, or what part should be growing muscles or not. You cannot target a specific muscle, a specific part of your body. The misconception comes because you can specialize a part of your body to do something. That's a whole different thing. For example, if I do arm exercises, right?
Mhm.
I can target, in quotations, the muscles that are the prime mover of that motion. That doesn't mean that that's the only muscle I'm using. Your body has 640 muscles. If you're doing an exercise that is standing up, even though you're training your arms, your legs must be activated. Because if not, how are you going to be standing up? Your core should be activated because you're
Yeah.
also maintaining the balance. Sometimes some people think that because you're doing legs, the legs are the only thing that are growing. No, everything is growing together. Now, the way in which it does it is determined by your genes. If you have a whole family history of people who are obese, maybe in your genes it's going to be a little bit harder for you to become a skinny. It's not impossible, but you have some genetic limitation. 50% of how humans look like comes from genes. The other 50, what they eat and how they move.
Wow. 50% of what you look like comes from your genes. The rest is from what you eat or how you move. Really great nuggets, Dr. Leon. Let's keep going. High intensity versus low intensity. How can somebody determine if they're working at the right intensity level for their fitness goal, given that more sweat doesn't always equal a better workout?
Yeah, that's a good question. We have different ways to measure this. From the aerobic standpoint, we have the RPE, which is the rate of perceived exertion. This is when you ask to a person from 1 to 10 how much you're feeling it. It's a qualitative way to determine it. However, research have shown that it has correlation. In the Borg scale, which is from 6 to 20, if I ask you right now, okay, you're doing this walking from 6 to 20, how intense it is, and you say, oh, I'm in a 12, I can take your blood pressure, I
Hmm.
can take your heart rate, and it will be exactly 120. So it's amazing. We can also do the talk test. Is when you are doing an exercise, you ask yourself, can I speak? That will be low intensity. Is it harder for me to speak? That will be moderate intensity. I cannot even talk. That will be high intensity, right? So we
All
have
right.
different ways to measure this. So when it comes to low intensity versus high intensity, it depends on the goal. Okay, we do know that low intensity exercise, for example, in muscular training, they're really good for shredding the body, meaning that you get the body more compact. High intensity in muscular training is good for swelling the body to get the hypertrophy, those big muscles. So it also depends what you're doing. We also have to take into consideration the nature of the patient. Some old people cannot do what young people can do. So for them, low intensity will be more beneficial because they are in a lower risk of injury. You don't want to get hurt when you're doing exercise. So if you want to know, am I doing the good intensity? It depends. What's your goal? What is your age? And what is your capability? I always say begin with low intensity because you need to master the technique. Once you know the technique, you can progressively go up in intensity, maybe in frequency, maybe in volume. You can
Mhm.
always mix how many reps you do, how many sets you do, how much you are resting. All of those things have a different effect. So you have to work with yourself and see what will be good for you and what worked for you. Remember, what worked for me doesn't necessarily have to work for you. We're two different entities.
Thank you. So not a one size fit all, and we can figure out whether it's low or high intensity by how whether we can talk or not, and some other tools. So thank you for that. So let's talk about injury. It's very common for people to get injured. How should an individual safely and effectively return to their routine after an injury, illness, or long period of inactivity?
It depends where the injury happened. For
Okay.
example, in the athletic training world, we do know that athletes sometimes get injured from the ankle. Okay. And the doctor tells them, well, you need to rest. The part that we're not understanding is the ankle needs to rest. You still have arms. You still
Mm,
can do some exercise. You don't have to be high intensity. You can get some bands and do some exercise. You can get some small dumbbells. You can still be active when you're recovering. Now, there are some diseases or conditions that affect the whole body, like, for example, cancer. If you're getting chemotherapy, if you're getting radiation, maybe it would not be helpful to do exercise at that point. But it has a limit because research have shown that physical therapy can benefit any kind of patient. So after a certain period of time, it depends on the disease, but it's usually between 2 to 4 weeks, we can integrate small exercises, right, in order to keep the body healthy because exercise is medicine. However, we also need to take into consideration that it's up to the doctor that is treating you to determine what intensity or whether or not you can do exercise. I think that the body is made to move. And if you don't move, you die. Because things
Yes.
are dead, they don't move. But things are alive, they move. Has you noticed that? So,
Yes.
regardless of your condition, there is always a kind of exercise you can do. Don't only think exercise is going to the gym. Sometimes even breathing can be an exercise.
Wow. Sometimes even breathing can be an exercise. That is amazing. And so I like the idea too, Dr. Leon, of if your feet, like I have an injury on my ankle that I got a couple years ago in Spain, but it still hasn't stopped me from running, playing around, hitting balls, doing stuff. But even if I couldn't move the ankle, then I could move my arm. So it says we can do other exercise. So I really appreciate that. And I like what you also reminded us that exercise is medicine. We need to do that. I tell my patients, and you, I'm sure you do it as well, is that exercise is free insulin. You don't need to get an injection. You go out and you exercise, your blood sugars are bound to come down. So that is good to remind people. Thank you. So we have talked about the myths. So let's move into starting and maintaining an exercise routine. Motivation and consistency is important. How can somebody find and maintain the motivation to exercise regularly, especially when they are starting out?
One thing that is working for me, and I see that it works for many people who are in a stressful jobs, who have a lot of family duties to do, something that some people that they don't even have time to be human, is habits sometimes are more powerful than exercise. Because we need to understand that exercise is like a recipe, okay? It has a goal to achieve. But physical activity, which is different, is what you do with your body all the time.
Mm-hmm.
If I do not have time to exercise, I do have time to move because I'm a human who needs to move. So what I do is I put small habits that could increase my physical activity. Therefore, it is like if I was doing exercise. For example, if you are in an office job, right? And you say, well, I don't have time to walk. Well, you can do 10 minutes in the morning, right? You can do 10 minutes in the afternoon when you're doing lunch. And you can do 10 minutes at night when you come from your job. That will be 30 minutes every day. And since exercises are cumulative, the same way that doing no exercise is also cumulative,
Mm-hmm.
right? You will notice the benefits without even noticing. You will realize, oh, I'm doing 150 minutes of exercise, but I'm only doing 10 minutes of walking. The other way is to stop seeing exercise as something bad and begin to embrace it as something good. Maybe every weekend you can do something physical. Like what? Maybe you can go for a bicycle walk. Maybe you can go with your family and friends and I don't know, dance or just have a party that involves any physical activity, archery. Maybe you want to do bowling. Maybe you want to anything that moves your body. Maybe you want to go swimming. All of those things that you can do without looking at it as an exercise, just like as an activity, a family activity, a friend activity, that can make a big difference. So building a habit, it is not as hard as we think. We just need to begin with something small and making a small change. Another thing that I want to add is the sedentary behavior that we get when we are watching TV. Okay, most people when they watch TV or they're watching something, they sit down, they're eating, but they're not paying attention to what they're eating. So their body is not understanding the quantity, so they're still hungry. That is a bad habit, but we can convert that habit into something good. What about instead of watching TV when I'm eating, I begin to watch TV when I'm exercising? And I have applied that to myself. Sometimes I don't want to be sitting down watching videos of the class. So I go to the gym and I use my phone, I use my headset, I put the lecture of the week, and then I walk. When I realize I already have walked for 2 hours, that's 10 kilometers. And I've
Yes.
been doing that every day. And I have seen my cholesterol goes down, my sugar goes down, my heart feels better, I feel less fatigue, I feel less tired, I have less stress, and I just combine my schooling sessions with my exercise sessions. So we can combine things, we can create new habits, or we can just do activities that relate to physical activity.
Wow. Some really great tips. Incorporating instead of sitting eating, maybe just work out and exercise while you're doing that. Thank you. All right. So plateaus it's a problem for us. What methods can be used to prevent an exercise routine from becoming stale and to continue making progress over time? So what can we do to prevent staleness and help us to be motivated to continue?
We need to understand the concept of progressive overload, which is a principle that we use in exercise science. One of my favorites, actually. Well, the principle is that the body and the mind are really good in adapting. It's really good. That's why we can memorize things. That's why we can learn things. So whatever you were doing at the beginning, if you keep doing it, the body will become more efficient. If it becomes more efficient, it uses less energy. If you use less energy, it's not doing the effect that you want. Same thing with the brain. The brain makes synaptic pathways all the time. Either could be good or bad, but it does it with a way to reserve energy in the brain, so things cannot be thought, but it could be just reactive to it. When we understand that part, we need to understand that in order to keep growing, we need to keep challenging ourselves. Most people say, well, I do walk, so I do exercise. What's the problem? Well, if you walk the same distance at the same time, it will only take a month for your body to fully master it. And then you will not see any other progress. Now, if you walk, but now you increase the distance, maybe you increase the time, maybe you put some ankle weights on your legs, maybe you were carrying something heavy, maybe you were taking another route, maybe you were shifting your body weight, maybe you were shifting the way you're doing it. Now you're walking backwards, now you're walking diagonal, you're using different muscles. Your body's like, I don't understand what we're doing, but we need to get better at it. And if you keep doing that, you will keep growing to the level that you can become an athlete without noticing. There is a story about an old lady. She was 65 with a lot of diseases, and she began to do gymnastics. By the age of 77, she became a champion, which is
Wow.
something really incredible. Because gymnastics, you begin when you're 5 years old, not 65. And her body is in such good shape that the doctors don't even understand how she doesn't get sick. And it's because she began with something simple, and then she repeated it, and then she challenged herself more and more and more. I have heard many stories of people that are veterans that they are now strong men and bodybuilders, and they're like 70 years old. You're like, how is that happening? It's because they have fortitude. It's because they don't give up and because they keep challenging themselves. So my advice for anybody who's listening to this is whatever you do, make it harder eventually. Make it more challenging. Let your body understand that you need to keep growing. Because when the body understands that you don't want to grow anymore, it begins to think that you just want to die. Because what is at the end of life? Death. So it begins to deteriorate slowly. Now, when you keep giving reasons to your body to stay alive, you become healthier, you become stronger, and you live longer.
Wow. I'm so glad this has been recorded, Dr. Leon, because these are some amazing nuggets that you're sharing. Let's talk a little bit about beginner safety. What precautions? You mentioned making sure get checked by the doctor. Should somebody who has been sedentary take before starting a new exercise program to avoid injury?
Good question. I like that. And I see that every January, the gym is packed.
Yes.
Everybody wants to do exercise. And they want to use all the machines. I don't know why. They feel like today's the day. And by February, March, nobody's in the gym.
Yep.
So what's going on? So the thing is, you need to understand that if you're sedentary, let's say for 20 years, you cannot ask to your body to do something that has never done before. You cannot ask your body to be an expert in something that has never practiced. If it took you 20 years to become obese, what make you think you become a bodybuilder in one day? That's impossible, right? So you need to slowly let the body to get accustomed to the new stimulus. So how do we do that? We first need to investigate what are our limits. One exam that I do to my patients sometimes is the 1RM, one repetition maximum. I let them carry one weight only one time. And I see what is the heaviest they can lift. It could be 100 pounds. Then from those 100 pounds, then I calculate 80 to 60% of that. Maybe it's 60 pounds, maybe it's 80 pounds. And then we begin from there. If it's too heavy, I go even lower. I go to 20%. And we begin from there. Because I need to let the body to accustom to this new stimulus. So every week I recheck, and every month I recheck to see the progress. So that's one thing you can do. The other thing you can do is always listen to your body.
Yes.
A little bit, and let's see how you feel tomorrow. Because the problem is they're doing too much, and tomorrow they're like, oh, I can't even move. You're not supposed to be that tired the next day. You're supposed to be able to do normal things like walking and talking. If you cannot do that the next day, you didn't do exercise. You kill yourself, right? And you
Wow.
can injure yourself. So when people come to me in January, oh, I want a routine. What should I do? I was like, you need to chill down first. You need to know your own limitations, and then we go from there. Sometimes I put my clients, when I was doing personal training back in my days, I put my clients to do sitting down and standing up for 2 months before I teach them how to do in a squat. Because for me, it was more important for them to know the technique before they can add any weight. Sometimes I teach them how to breathe before we even go to walk. Because some people don't know how to breathe. They think they know, but they
Mm.
don't. So you need to learn these basic things in order to be safe and then to initiate. Everybody can initiate on January by walking 30 minutes. That's not that bad. You can do 30 minutes. Maybe you can do lower than that. Maybe you can do 10 minutes, right? You can do 10 minutes. You're not in any competition with anybody. And stop looking around to see how people are doing. Focus on yourself. See what you can do. And slowly, by the end of the year, you will do significant progress.
Wow. 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 Amazing, Dr. Leon. All right. Benefits and types of exercise. All right. We talked about targeting parts of the body. We know that doesn't work. But let's talk about targeting fitness goals. What are the pros and cons of focusing on a single type of activity versus incorporating a mix of aerobic, strength, and flexibility training? You mentioned all three of them in your presentation. What are some of the benefits and the pros and cons of doing it that way?
Well, I always tell to my patients, you can specialize in one training. You can never neglect the others. There is something called the five health components of fitness. And this is something that everybody should know. Because if you violate one of those five statements, you will literally die. I don't try to
Hmm.
scare anybody, but it's the truth. Science proves this. So the first component is body composition. How much weight do you have for your muscles? How much weight do you have for your fat? We do know that people with high fat or high adiposity in the body are in a higher risk for heart-related diseases. If your heart stops, well, you're clinically dead, right? So we need to understand that body composition, which is regulated by exercise and diet, is one of the health components of fitness. Second one, flexibility. People sometimes neglect this, but flexibility is really good because not only can control the stress that you have in your mind, but it also prevents you from injuries. We have shown that multiple times. Then we have something called cardiovascular resistance. That's the ability of your heart to deliver blood and the ability of your lungs to acquire oxygen. If you have low cardiovascular resistance, you might get a heart attack. Then we have muscular resistance. Muscular resistance is different to cardiovascular resistance because muscular resistance is the ability of a muscle to move many times without being in fatigue. People who have lower muscular resistance, they always feel tired. Do you know why?
Oh, you
Because
actually,
yeah,
the muscles are weak.
the muscles are weak. Exactly. If your muscles are weak, how are you gonna pretend that your body's not gonna feel tired? If majority of your body is muscles, right? And then you have something called muscular strength, which is different. It's different from muscular resistance. Muscular strength is the ability of your body to carry weight. Why is that important? Especially in females. After menopause, you have a low level of estrogen, which means you have low calcium content. How do you put calcium in the body? Because everybody says, oh, I need to eat more calcium. Well, how do you put the calcium in your body? You need to stress the bones and the muscles. When you stress the bone and the muscle, the body will regenerate by building more muscle and more bone. But when you don't do any weight training, you don't have a strength. Therefore, you're going to get osteoporosis, osteopenia, sarcopenia, and all of these diseases. I know that culturally females are inclined to not be carrying heavy things, but I'm gonna tell you as a physiologist, if you don't carry heavy things, you're gonna be prone to many problems in the future. So those five components are necessary for somebody to be considered healthy. However, some people they just want to specialize in one. Some people they love yoga. I have nothing against yoga, but they do too much yoga. Some people they like muscular strength, so they do a lot of heavy weightlifting, but they don't do cardio. Some people they just do cardio, but they don't do heavy weight training or flexibility. So the problem is when you neglect one of them, then you have a new problem. I have seen some bodybuilders, for example, and powerlifters, that they don't do no cardio whatsoever, but they have big muscles. So the heart is atrophied, it's really small. So this small heart has to be pumping blood to all of these muscles all the time. And because it doesn't have the power to that, they get heart attacks when they do
Yep.
heavy weightlifting. So this, you might say, oh, they're weak. No, they are strong, but their heart is weak because they never train them. Some people they do too much yoga, but they don't do strength training. So their tendons are too flexible. So they are really prone to subluxations and dislocations because their muscles are not strong enough to keep the bone where it's supposed to. They are too flexible. So there's no problem with specializing in one. Maybe you want to do a marathon, you want to do a little cardio. Good for you, but don't neglect your strength. Don't neglect your flexibility. Don't neglect your diet because we talk about body composition. People don't realize this, but there are skinny people with high cholesterol because
Mm-hmm.
they don't check their diet. There are skinny people with diabetes because they don't check their sugar. So just because you look skinny doesn't mean you're healthy. It just means that you're skinny. Maybe because of genes, maybe because of morphology, maybe you're an ectomorph. I don't know. But that doesn't mean that you're healthy. Skinny or fat is not necessarily related to health, right? So those five components is what I tell people. You need to make sure you're eating well. You need to make sure you're doing flexibility. You make sure you're doing cardio. You need to make sure you do strength training, right? It might depend on your goal. Maybe you are doing sport that's related to a specific part. Good for you. Maybe it's something that you like. Maybe you like to run instead of weightlifting. Good, but you need to do all of it. At least the minimum, because when you're done, your body lose their balance. Then you're gonna have a problem. Then you're gonna come to see me, and I'll be like, okay, why weren't you doing cardio? What is the problem with cardio? Well, I don't like running. Okay, maybe swim, maybe do bicycle, maybe dance, do something, but do cardio because cardio is related to your health, and we need you to keep your life and healthy.
Wow. When you spoke a minute ago about the atrophy of the heart, it reminded me of the first bodybuilder that I actually saw drop dead in a gym. And I was astonished. I mean, I remember going through his death records like, what the hell could have killed this guy? I mean, he was the fittest guy on the island. He looked amazing. But yes, all he did was he focused on that weight, and
Mhm.
his heart was not strong. And so he popped over and turned over one day. I think he was 37 years old. It was astonishing. So I totally hear you, and I've lived through the experiences of having a young person on the floor in a hospital, because of just being overdoing one part of this. So thank you so much, Dr. Leon, for this. Amazing. If you have questions, guys, put them in the chat on Facebook as well as in the room. Alrighty, I have more questions. Aerobic versus strength training. You've talked a little bit about that. How do you balance that? Can you talk a little bit more about how you balance it? Do you do a little bit of each day? I know you had a slide on that. So how do you balance between the aerobic and strength training pieces? Can
We
you
need
talk a little bit more about that or elaborate on it?
Of course, no problem. We need to understand that their training protocols are different because the body reacts different. They're like the yin and the yang. So, for example, in cardio, the more cardio you do, the stronger you become. In weight training, the less strength you do, the stronger you become. People don't
Hmm.
understand that. So, how does that work in the physiological world? It's really fascinating, right? When you do cardio, you're using your extremities, you're using your muscles. Like muscles are moving. We cannot ignore that. So technically speaking, you're using your muscles too. Um, you do a lot of things, but the main goal of cardio is to train your heart, right? So you're doing whatever is necessary. You're breathing, you're resting, your reps, everything to target your heart. When you target your heart is going to accelerate, right? Your blood pressure will go up, your heart rate will go up, your breathing rate will go up, you begin to sweat. We all know how we feel when you do cardio, right? Therefore, because the muscles of the heart are more prone to repetition, 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 that's the only way you can become better on cardio, by doing it more. It's even recommended that as you get older, you need to increase your cardio every single day. because naturally your heart will become older. What keeps it healthy and young, it is the cardio training, right? Your muscles don't work like cardio. Your muscles are more muscular, they're more strength prone related. You can train them to be more cardiac, but they don't like that. They are more for like the bigger, the stronger, the more thick I am, the better. So with weight training, what you do is you go to the gym, you carry heavy weights, you break your muscles, and then you rest. The more you rest, the more time the body has to release more growth hormone and testosterone, and the more they can repair themselves, so the bigger they become. So if you
Mm.
treat weight training like you treat cardio, you're gonna do it wrong because you will never grow the muscles. The muscle will only grow when you rest, but the heart will only grow when you keep using it. So it's weird, right? So therefore, for the dosification, it sounds totally different because I can calculate intensity of cardio by saying, okay, you're gonna do 30 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours, but I cannot do that with weight training. Weight training should be you can do 10 repetitions. You can do it 2 times, and you need to rest 3 to 5 minutes. I never seen anybody in the weight room doing that. They go from one machine to the other. They don't even let the body to take a break. And I tell them that is not how you train weightlifting. You need to give the time to the body to react. So when you're trying to combine both techniques, you need to understand is when you do cardio, like serious cardio, not like warming up for 10 minutes. No, when you do serious cardio, like 30 minutes, 1 hour, you should not be doing weight training. And even if you try to do it, you should not be doing cardio first. You need to do your weight training, then let your body rest, and then you can do your cardio. So when I see people that they go to the gym and they do 30 minutes of cardio first, and then they go to the weight training, they are doing it wrong because they don't understand how the body reacts to the exercise. You need to understand that exercise is just a stimulus. It's just orders that you give to your body. It's like a conversation that you're telling to your body what to do and how to do it. But you can confuse your body if you're not following the rules of how it's supposed to be done. So for people who wants to include both, try to separate them. You can do cardio in the morning, 30 minutes, and then at night you do weight training. You don't need to do 5 days of weight training. You don't need to do 7 days of weight training. Schwarzenegger, this guy who was really good in
Mhm.
bodybuilding, he said that when he was competing, he used to train 5 days a week and he was losing. But then he began to train 1 day per week or 2 days per week, and his muscle grows so big. He was so strong. He couldn't even understand why was that the case. Because weight training is too different to cardio training. The same way balance training, agility training, coordination training, all of them they have their own protocol because it's a different way of thinking for your body. I don't know if that
Wow.
clarifies. I don't
Oh
know.
yes, it was an amazing explanation. All right, let's talk about age, and then I'm gonna go to nutrition, which is I know your new baby. Um, what are some examples of safe and effective exercises for older adults that focus on balance and muscle strengthening? Can you give some example for older people like me and others that are on the phone in our 65 and 70 years old? Pickleball, I know we do. We can go play tennis or walk, but what are some examples to sort of keep that balance and keep our muscles strong?
Believe it or not, but elderly, they should be treated like athletes. What? Yes. Because the same needs that an athletic person has for their sport is the same needs that an elderly should have for their life. Let me explain myself. We do know that athletes, they like to have a stamina. They like to,
Mhm.
keep running and running for their heart to be good because when they go to the competition, they should not be getting tired. They will lose the game, right? So the elderly, what happened is as we age, we stop jumping, we stop running, we stop doing things that are high intensity because we are scared of getting injured, which is understandable. But what we don't understand is our body's deteriorating so fast that we don't have the same regeneration rate that a young person will have. Even more if you were diabetic. Diabetic people have a hard time recovering. Even worse if you have cancer, right? So how can we fix that problem? We do something called high intensity interval training, which is when we do something for high intensity and then we reduce it to low intensity, and then we bump it up to high intensity. The benefit of this is that you can achieve a lot in a short period of time. For example, if you were doing jumping ropes, 5 minutes of jumping ropes is equivalent to 1 hour running.
Mm.
5 minutes. Now, we know that not everybody can jump. We know that part. But we can also modify it. You can try to do jumping rope without the rope, right? You can try to do jumping jacks, or you can do modified jumping jacks. If I tell you that I have phase 2 and phase 3 myocardial infarction patients doing jumping jacks, you'll be like, oh, but you killed them. No, I just understood their level, and I went to their level, and I was always monitoring their blood pressure. If it was going too hard, I was like, okay, let's just sit down and breathe. If it was too small, I was like, okay, I need you to keep doing it faster. And in 30 minutes, for 3 days, for 3 months, we achieved so much. These people couldn't even stand up by themselves. Now that we're going for a walk in the park. So the magic of medicine, exercise as medicine, is that you can achieve a lot if you're patient enough. So for people who are getting older and they want to train their body, they don't have to be scared of the intensity. They have to be scared of the frequency. You need to let your body, take breaks when they need to, breathe when you need to, drink water when you need to, but the intensity can help you achieve a lot. I'm not saying low intensity is not good. It's just gonna take a long time. And if you're deteriorating your body faster than what you are making it better, that could be a problem. So high intensity could be a good technique. The other thing with balance, most people think the balance is only for athletes, but everybody should be practicing balance, even me. And as you get older, you lose more and more coordination of your body. So just doing simple things like standing up and putting your hand in the table and just closing your eyes, that could be something simple for a young person, but for an older person, it could be a trouble. So trying to do that 5 minutes every day, that could make a big difference. Maybe try to lift one leg. Maybe try to be in an unstable surface in a safe way. Always have somebody with you just in case you're gonna fall. But if you practice that all the time, maybe in reaction time, that's another exercise that's pretty good. And the study shows that elder people who were playing tennis in the Nintendo Wii, which because it's a reaction time game, they improve their cognition, their memory, and their concentration for 40%. And that was just in a game in a house. So how much we can do if we were outside in the park practicing those things? Maybe catching a ball. That could be a good game too. So all of those abilities that you begin to lose, you can recover and maintain it if you practice those exercises.
Wow, so much food for thought. So physical activity and mental health. One last question, and then I'm going to move to nutrition and recovery and call this a wrap. Beyond physical activity, physical health, what are the specific mental and emotional benefits of regular exercise, such as managing stress or anxiety? Talk more a little bit about more. You mentioned some of that, but talk a little bit more about those physical and mental health pieces and how exercise helps.
This is something that really inspired me to become a clinical counselor. I think that will be my third master. Because research has shown that the only real cure for depression without side effects is exercise. That just blew on my mind when I heard that. Because I have heard about many medications, many surgeries, many therapies, because therapy is good too. But the only real cure
Wow.
for depression is exercise. And nobody's talking about this. Nobody's talking. And I even proved that to myself. I had a friend in college. He was a pre-med student. He was also a chemistry student. The classes were really hard. He was going through a breakthrough because his family was having trouble. His father got cancer. His girlfriend cheated on him. And he had like 3 really hard exams coming up. And this guy was freaking out. He was going to therapy. It was not working. He was drinking pills and he was not working. And he just didn't know what to do. And I just talked to him. I was like, you know what? Let's go for a walk. And we went to a park, which I don't even remember the name, but I know it's in Berea in Ohio. And we went for a walk and he was just talking. I don't even know what he was talking. I wasn't even paying attention to him. He was just talking and walking. We did that for like 2 hours. We had to talk to an Uber to go back to campus because we walked for too long. And this guy began to make a habit of walking long distances, talking to himself like a crazy person. And he was doing that every single day. And when I tell you that this guy make a big change in his life, and nobody wants to believe me, without no pill, without no therapist, I'm not saying psychology doesn't work. I'm not saying pills doesn't work. I'm just saying that in the case of this kid, he make a big difference. And he was even thinking about suiciding before. So we're
Mm.
talking about a big difference. This person was happier. He was feeling better. He was more positive. He passed his exams. He's recovered for all of these problems that he was having. And that makes me realize that in medicine, sometimes we are not doing evidence-based approach. Sometimes we are not thinking about what really works. So when it comes to mental health, we do know that when you exercise in any way, it could be flexibility, it could be strength, it could be cardio, it could be balance, your brain releases serotonin,
Yep.
dopamines. We release a lot of oxytocin.
Mm-hmm.
People get obsessed with exercise because oxytocin is a hormone of love. People fall in love with exercise.
Yes, I do. Me too.
It is really good for regulating emotions. Like if you are really, really sad, you go to do exercise, you get better. If you're really, really happy, you do exercise, you get better. You're really upset, you do exercise, you get better. You're hungry, you do exercise, you get better. It's just crazy. The science is there, the neural components of it, the hormones, the endocrines, everything is there. It's complicated to understand, but it's easy to know that if you have any strong emotion, before you do any decision in your life, if you go and do exercise, you can self-regulate. There's a reason why the monks in China and the people who do kung fu and the people who do even yoga was meant for Indian people to get more concentrated. Even in other religions and other cultures, exercise has always been related. Even from the Greeks, people who were like trying to become virtuous and they were trying to become strong morally and mentally, they were always doing exercise. If you think about it, Plato was called Plato because his back was so big because he was doing gymnastics all the time. Aristotle, he was a really good runner. Every philosopher that you can, they were always doing exercise. And there is a reason, because when you train your body, you're training your mind. And when you train both, you become balanced spiritually, physically, mentally. If you are sad and you're not moving, you are literally making yourself worse. But when you begin to move without even thinking, you're just becoming better. So for anybody who has any mental problem, any stress, any anxiety, any panic, I would encourage you to do exercise and let me know what happened next.
Thank you. All right. So now your newest baby is nutrition. So I have a few questions for you and then we'll call it a wrap. This has been amazing. And I see you dancing there, Mr. Leon. So let's talk about nutrition. Beyond supplements, for somebody aiming to build muscles, what are the best dietary strategies to support muscle growth without relying heavily on supplements?
That's a good question. We need to understand that everybody has different protein intakes and different protein requirements. Americans tend to eat too much protein.
Yes, we do.
And that could put them in a really bad spot because higher protein can damage your kidneys.
Mm-hmm.
Higher protein can also induce obesity. There's some
Yes.
protein induced obesity. We'll first need to figure out how much protein do you need. When you have an estimate, you need to try to get it from natural sources. It could be meat, it could be egg, it could be fish. For people who are vegan or vegetarian, there are certain nuts, there are certain vegetables, there are certain things that can give you the protein you need. My approach for myself in terms of protein intake, it will always depend on my physical activity. If I do know that this weekend I'm not going to be moving too much, then I don't need that much protein that day. If I do know that I'm going to go to the gym, I tend to eat protein before and after. Before, to get enough protein to go to the gym and do my best, and after to recover, because
Mm-hmm.
the higher the intensity, the higher the protein needs. When it comes to the other components, because people only talk about protein, but we need hydration too, and vitamin and mineral intake. In order for me to determine vitamin and mineral intake, I usually do blood testing to be more accurate.
Mm-hmm.
But if
Mm-hmm.
I don't have blood testing, I try to be more have more variation of the food I eat. If I ate tomato yesterday, I don't have to eat tomato the next day. I could try something else. If I did lettuce, maybe I can do a spinach the next day. Because if you eat the same thing over and over and over, you can get in troubles too. The same way if you're eating too much supplements. So the key component is, it's not the healthiness come from what you eat, but it's the variety you eat it, the quantity you eat it, the portion you eat it, the frequency you eat it. Actually, I'm gonna make a book out of that, but I need to get
I'm
my license first.
I am sure you're gonna do. You're gonna get your license and do that. I'd love to be a part of that book. All right, hydration. We know people are out there exercising and drinking a bunch of stuff. What are the key signs of dehydration during exercise, and what is the best way to maintain optimal hydration for different types of workouts? Can you tell
That,
us that?
that is a good. Who made that question?
I did.
That's a great question. Um, Let me tell you, just to begin the discussion about that. I had a friend who passed away because he was overhydrated. He was a track and field athlete. He was really good. He used to do half marathons and he used to do 400 meters and all that. He was really good, but he was drinking water all the time, all the time, all the time, all the time, all the time. And one day, in one of his training, he went to do his thing, and in the middle of the run, he just dropped dead. He had heart failure. I was like, well, that don't make any sense. This guy was really healthy. What's going on? When we talked to the pathologist, he didn't have enough sodium in his blood. And when you are doing cardio training, your blood pressure is supposed to go up with the help of sodium.
Mm-hmm.
But when you sweat, you release sodium.
Yes.
So I was so confused. I was like, wait a minute, that don't make any sense because I thought water hydrates. And the pathologist told me, no, sodium hydrates, salt hydrates. Water is just a component. So then I learned the benefits and the importance of electrolytes. If a person sweats a lot, if a person is always crying, that could be the case too. If a person is salivating a lot, they can lose some components of electrolytes. And if a person also have a kidney problem, it cannot self-regulate electrolytes correctly. So hydration not only comes from the water, but the minerals are in the water. So if you know that you are going to be sweating or you're going to be doing a lot of cardio, you need to hydrate with either sport drinks or with things that have enough salt and sugar in it. It is really dangerous to not have enough salt in your blood if you are going to be sweating. However, on the opposite side, if a person is not sweating, is not doing cardio, is not moving at all, why are you drinking Gatorade? That don't make any sense. That's a sports drink for people who do a sport,
Yes.
right? So in America, I've seen people that drink a lot of energy drinks, drink a lot of sport drinks, drink a lot of things just for the taste of it. And that is also dangerous because having an excess of sodium can give you arrhythmias and high blood pressure. Having an excess of potassium, magnesium, phosphorus can also damage your kidneys. So we need to be careful. Now, when it comes to do I know that I'm drinking too much water or too little water? Well, it depends first in the color of your urine. You need
Mm-hmm.
to see if it's too pale, if it's too transparent, maybe you're overhydrated. But if it's too yellow, maybe brown, maybe black, maybe you are really dehydrated. Also, you need to see yourself. Are you feeling thirsty all the time? Because if you're drinking enough water, you shouldn't be feeling
Yep.
thirsty at all, right? And maybe a little bit. I'm not gonna say you know at all. Maybe the food that you're eating is too dry, right? Some people that eat, I would say, there's certain kind of bread that absorb all the moist of your body. Maybe you need a little bit of juice with that. And when it comes to exercise, the training that make you sweat the most is cardio. That doesn't mean you don't sweat with weight training or with flexibility. You could, but the one that you always gonna be sweating the most is cardio. You always need to be hydrating before, during, and after the exercise. Not like,
Thank
okay,
you.
I finished 1 hour and then I'm gonna drink water. No, because sometimes your kidneys cannot take that much water at once. So you should be drinking water before, during, and after. When I do cardio, I have two bottles of waters. One of them contains electrolytes, one doesn't. And by the end of my 2 hours workout, I should have drank both. If I didn't drink both, then I'm dehydrated. I know for sure because I already make the calculations with my body weight and all that. But people need to understand the importance of water when it comes to exercise and the importance of electrolytes when it comes to intensity. The higher intensity the cardio exercise, the more you're going to sweat, the more sodium you're going to lose. Even calcium sometimes is lost during those exercises. So we need to make sure we're drinking enough. With weight training, you don't need to drink that much water, but it's always going to depend on the intensity of the weight that you're carrying. People who carry 200, 300, 400 pounds, they can lose as much water than if you were doing cardio. So we need to be careful with that too.
Wow. Dr. Leon, you have been amazing all the way from Columbus, Ohio. If you had one last sentence to share with our listeners on Facebook and everybody else who's going to hear you on YouTube, etc., what would be that summary that you'll give for them today as I pull up the slides to wrap this up today? Thank you so much for your time. What is your key takeaway that you want everybody to hear?
I want to tell everybody that health is the result of your habits. Everything you do every day counts. So if you want to have a healthy life, you need to have healthy habits.
Thank you. And exercise is medicine.
Exactly, exactly. They know that.
I thank you so much. You have been amazing. Of course, I am here rooting for you, making sure that praying you through your residency so you can come out and be helping us advance the health of all Americans that we desperately need to continue to do. So we do have some quick announcements from this. This is the first part of our conference series for 2025. This week is going to be International Forgiveness Week and World Day of Peace. And so we started with this excellent presentation by Dr. Leon. And Leon, you have been amazing and surpassed all expectations. So we thank you. So here are some quick announcements. As a part of our conference on the 18th, we'll have an event where Emory University is going to talk about embracing or coming into the joy of and the fullness of forgiveness. Dr. Brendan from Emory is going to be the speaker on Thursday night at 6 p.m. So please join us for that event. On Friday night at 5 p.m., we have a grant writing boot camp that we offer for very minimal cost, only $35, for people who have nonprofits or church or temples who want to learn how to write grants. So if you're hearing me and you have somebody who needs to learn this skill, it's a very critical skill to have. People are hiring grant writers all the time. They make hundreds of thousands of dollars. This is a great boot camp. So sign up. You can scan the QR code on your screen and sign up to come on Friday night or pre-conference grant writing boot camp. On Saturday morning, we kick off at 9 a.m. This is going to be our 8th annual conference, not 9th. And on the 18th, I mentioned that workshop by Emory. And on that conference, final conference day, we start at 9 and we end at 3:30. Here also is a flyer with a QR code. We have about 6 pastors. We have scientists. We have medical doctors on the panel. We have brought together a faculty that's surpassed by nowhere else in this country. I mean, these are experts in their own right, and they're going to be here to speak to us about faith, family, forgiveness, and fortitude. We only ask for donations of $35, but if you can send us 500, that would be fine. But we'd love to have you if you're here in anywhere in the world. This is virtual, so you can call in from Jamaica, Grenada, the UK, Canada. It doesn't matter where. Nigeria, we'd love to have you on as well. So come on to learn the different things that we're going to be offering. We have a pastors forum. We're going to talk about the American healthcare system and how to navigate that and be empowered as a client. We'll teach you about how to write your will and do your estate planning. And we've already just done the physical activity piece, but we'll have a session on nutrition. And we'll wrap it up with a doctor who's a cardiologist who will speak about the impact of anger and unforgiveness in your heart. He says it's like smoking packs of cigarettes. And he's going to talk about his work and research in the heart as he looked at unforgiveness. You don't want to miss this conference. We also have a monthly prayer call every single fourth Saturday of the month. Here's a number on the screen if you want to call in, but if you don't and don't have time, you can email us your prayer request at forgiveforhelp@gmail.com, and we will pray for you. We pray for the president, and we start from the White House to the poorhouse, and we pray for people all over the world. So join us if you have time, but if not, just send us your prayer requests. Forgiveness Live, every single second Saturday of the month, we have a program on Facebook Live. Next month is October, and we're going to look at domestic violence prevention. And we're going to have Michelle Maddox, who's it's a renowned expert in this space. She's going to share her best practices, talk about clients that she's helped in this space. You don't want to miss Forgiveness Live on the second Saturday of every month at 1 o'clock. Same place here on Facebook. So join us next month for that domestic violence session. We also, as a ministry, offer forgiveness coaching. So there's nobody in the world who's not been hurt by a mom, a dad, a husband, a spouse, a partner, a co-worker. But if you have hurts that you need to work through so you can be set free, we offer one-on-one and group coaching. So we can help you with assessments of your forgiveness. We have 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, as long as you need us to help you coaching. So you can be set free from the shackles of unforgiveness and you can live your best life. And so send us an email. We'll give you that information at the end and you can set up your coaching session. We can see you once a month or every 2 weeks as the frequency that you require, because we are trained to help people to do this as not only forgiveness coaches, but as Christian coaches as well. We will start in late October our virtual support group for people who have been divorced. It's called Restoring Your Heart Support Group. So if you've been in a divorce or you have had that broken relationship, we're going to run that also on Facebook. It's going to be on Mondays at 7:30. So we'll talk about it later in October next month when we'll kick it off. We'd love to have you join us. The only requirement, apart from a donation, is that you purchase this copy of this book, They Speak from the Pain of Divorce, because that's the tool that we'll be using for that session. It's a workbook that you can write in and you can take for your own practice to your home so you can sort of meditate on what you're learning. So we'll kick that off in late October. And last but not least, on the 26th of October here in Stone Mountain, we'll have our Paint Shop and Sip fundraiser where you can come to draw paint and shop from our pop-up store. It's going to start at 2 p.m. It's a Sunday and ends at 5. And the location is on the screen. Registration is already on Eventbrite. So go ahead and register and come and join us to learn more about forgiveness, paint, draw, and sip, and of course, shop or participate in our auctions. Lastly, we are a 501c3. That means we exist by your donation. So feel free to put us in your will if you have one. You should have one because all of us are going to die. Send us a monthly donation. No money is too small. So if you have $5, $10, $15, or $50, we will take whatever you give us so we can fulfill the mission we have here to set people free from unforgiveness. So I'd like to end with prayers, and I'm going to ask Mr. Robert, I think I saw you on earlier. Could you say a word of prayer over this, the words that's gone forth, and that God will plant it in the deep recesses of people's hearts, and that they will be changed? Can you pray for us, Mr. Robert?
Okay. Oh, Heavenly God, we thank you, Heavenly God, for this evening and knowledge that you have given us, oh Father. We know, Heavenly Father, that we perish because of lack of knowledge, but we're going to take all the knowledge that we can to Heavenly Father, and we're going to take the wisdom that you have given us to use that knowledge, oh God. So continue to be with us and continue to bless this forum, Heavenly Father, that we can go forth spreading your word, oh Heavenly God, doing all the things that you want us to do, that our bodies belong to you, Heavenly God, that we will take care of it like you take care of us. So continue to be with us this evening as we go forth in your name. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. Robert. Thank you, Dr. Leon. And here is our contact information, forgive4health@gmail.com, or call us at 404-294-4072. Have a blessed evening, everybody, and thank you in all different language. Leon, you are amazing and the best. So thank you, everybody, and have a good week. And see you on Thursday night and on Friday night, and of course, next week, Saturday, where we will have the final conference day. Have a good weekend, and thanks for all you do. Bye-bye.
Right.